Good morning, everybody. Welcome back to my channel. I am getting ready to do my resin stabilization here. And getting my nitrile gloves on. These are disposable 7mm heavy duty nitrile gloves. And in these trays here, I have slabs, and I have some rough Moroccan chrysocolla, and I am going to be putting the rough stone into this pan on the burner, or on the heat tray. This is just a Mainstays griddle that I bought at Walmart. It has a nice flat surface and it will do the job quite well. That way I didn't have to worry about buying another thing sight unseen off of Amazon. So in here I've got my Charoite. The gloves are to keep my hands from leaving an oil deposit on the stones that I'm going to be stabilizing. And the heat tray is going to be to heat the stones up a little bit after I get the them out of the acetone, to get the residual acetone out of the stones, to make sure there's no residual acetone. Now these are smaller pieces out of what I got, so they're just going to be to cut up for small stones, and some of this stuff is probably just so small it's going to end up in my tumbler eventually, but it's going to be worked with. But this material is just so unstable that I had a friend that got this material and it was just gumming up her wheels on her stone lapidary machines, and therefore was just completely unworkable. It was just chalky. So I decided to get this system and set up, and the reason why I'm wearing nitrile gloves is not really so that I don't get the acetone on me, but so that I do not get oil from my fingers onto the stones, because that will block the the resin from getting into the stones. Now you notice I don't know why there's purple on the lid. This was the lid that the chrysocolla was in the container. It's not the one that the Suzalite was in. So the Suzalite, not Suzalite, Charoite is not the bin that the Charoite was in. So the Charoite is not dyed. It was in the bin that the chrysocolla was in. So I have no idea where the purple came from. Maybe it was residual dye from something. Maybe someone dropped something in there. I'm just going to heat this up to about 200 degrees to make sure all the acetone is out of the stones. But at the end of this, I'm going to let them cool back down, because the Cactus Juice resin is a thermoset resin. I do not want them going into it hot, because it will cause a cure reaction on the surface and it may block the resin from going into the stone. I have heard that you're supposed to, heat the I've heard people saying that you're supposed to heat the stones when you do it before you put it in, but I question the validity of that because I think that would make it thicker and less likely to go into the stone when it contacts the stone. So I am just going to work with it at room temperature. It says right on the label to not let it get above like 89 degrees Fahrenheit, because there is a chance that it might cure before you get to use it even. It might begin to cure before you're ready for it. So I'm going to just keep it cool, and I am going to heat these stones up to get the acetone out, and I'm going to go mix up the Cactus Juice resin while I'm waiting for these to bake the acetone out. The gloves did not melt, did not fall apart. Acetone will degrade nitrile after a certain period of time being in it, meaning it will break down and shred. It does not melt, which is wonderful because it will not get gooey and stick to your stones. So that's the upside of using nitrile as compared to vinyl or other plastic gloves. So I'm going to cut video now and just go to the next stage and prepare the resin, and then I'll describe what the process was like mixing the resin. It's a two-part mixture. There's an activator, and then there's just shy of a gallon of the main body of resin. So I'll go do that right now, and I'll be back. Okay, so here's the Cactus Juice resin. It comes with the gallon jug and this little bottle here. The little bottle is the activator. It is a thick white paste, and what you do is you add from this bottle. You can see I made an error on the temperature. It's not 95 that it needs to stay below, it's 85. But you add from this large bottle until the small bottle is about 75% full, and then you shake the heck out of it until it mixes up in the small bottle, and then you pour it into the big bottle, and that activates the whole gallon. It says right on the label, do not mix partial quantities, mix the whole thing. Due to the temperature requirements, I am probably just going to store this in the back corner of the refrigerator just to make sure it does not start to cure at any time. It's supposed to get up to 98 degrees here tomorrow. So, and we do not have central air in this house. So I've already gone through that, so this is empty. I've rinsed it out with more of this to make sure I get all the activator out and into the gallon. It is already mixed and ready to go. So I am probably for today, since I'm going to be doing the batch of stabilization, I'm going to leave it out on the counter. But after I do that, it is going to be put in the refrigerator. Time to go check on the stuff on the griddle. Okay, the stuff on the griddle is in the sun. I still smell acetone coming off of the items in the pan. The slabs are done. The acetone is baked out of them. So I'm going to probably put my gloves on and rotate the larger pieces here. and I am going to make sure they get even heat. I bought a steamer basket from a thrift store with a lid, and to heat the pieces when I'm curing them, I'm going to put a thin sheet of parchment paper down on the bottom of the steamer basket and put the pieces in the bottom of the steamer basket and put them on the griddle. That way it contains the heat and the air inside the steamer basket will get hot and heat the material from all sides, and I can check it with the infrared thermometer to make sure it's getting up to a high enough temperature to cure the resin. But I can also turn up the temperature a little bit, but I think I'll keep it around the 200 mark because I don't want the temperature getting too high and risking damaging the stones. Okay, so here we go. Yeah, they're getting pretty warm on the bottoms. Also, the sun is helping warm them from the top, but it's not getting 100% of it, so these larger pieces are the ones that I'm going to be worried about. But you can see there's some nice quartz in some of these pieces. So we got some druzy chrysocolla going on. Got some quartz there. Got some malachite on that piece. These two pieces are done, so I'm going to go get a tray and get them off. So here I've got a nice high-sided aluminum tray for this one. Whew, yeah, that is quite hot. That way the bubbles will not hopefully go over the edge. I'll just have to put enough of the cactus juice over it to cover it. And then this one is what I have for the larger pieces. I'm just going to take these and... Nope, they still have some. I'm going to put the smaller ones out here now. Directly on the... Also, I think you lose some when you, some temperature when you put it on an aluminum pan here instead of directly on in contact with the surface of the griddle. Even the small pieces still smell like acetone. So I'm just going to take them out and put them directly on the griddle. One of those things, I bought this griddle specifically for curing this resin and doing this resin stabilization project, so it doesn't matter when I use it for something like this, because I'm not planning on using it for anything else like food or cooking. So if the non-stick gets scratched by rocks, doesn't make a lick of difference. So now I'll just let these sit for a little bit longer and get the acetone out of them. Maybe for this stage I will turn it up to like 250 here. See if I can bake it out a little bit faster, but they're going to cool in between this and the stabilization anyways, so these ones I'm going to bring inside the house out of the sun. Okay, the rocks were not coming up to temperature evenly and baking out real quickly, so I decided to get my other piece and get it out here and get them enclosed and get them, this whole thing will, the interior will raise in temperature. So this is my steamer basket, stainless steel and glass lid that I bought at the thrift store. I spent $5 between the lid and the steamer basket. It has a nice flat bottom, fits flat on the griddle, other than the texture of the griddle, of course, but you know. So you can see how crumbly this material is. You can see the crumbs that came off the small pieces when I poured them down into the bottom there. So I'm thinking probably the small pieces I will just stabilize and leave as specimens, do thumbnails with them, mount them up and label them with thermal labels in perky boxes. So that's that. And I have my vacuum pump set up and my vacuum chamber in the shade. I have opened my oil fill gauge yesterday and gotten it acclimated to the atmospheric pressure here in Portland. And I read the instructions on how to do it, so I think I am going to right now. It's all plugged in and ready to go. I will do a dry test run and bring this up to vacuum without anything in it and see how it runs. So first thing I need to do is close the air intake on the chamber and turn on the vacuum pump. Now it's draining the air out. And basically, regardless of where it stops, at that point when it stops, I just turn this valve, or I turn the valve, then I turn off the pump, and that's when it's up to vacuum. If I continue trying to suck air out, there is a risk of it imploding, so I don't want to do that. And it is still going. Still going. Still going. And there it is. Stop that. And turn off the pump. And now I will wait and make sure there's no leaks. It does not look like the needle is budging, so that means I've got a good seal. And it does not look like I've got any leaks as of yet. I'll come back in about a couple of minutes and check on it. But as of right now, it looks good. I'd like it if it had gotten a bit more. Almost got to 25. I'd liked it if it got to 30. that would have been optimal. But what can you expect from Chinese stuff? I only paid $60, 68 or something like that dollars for this pump. So, but the vacuum chamber looks very good. Pressure's not going, air's not getting into it. It's been a minute. And then when you go to repressurize, you let air in through here slowly. And let it repressurize. It also has a filter built in, so it'll filter the air going in so no dust particles get into your resin and stuff like that. And that's the stage I do after the bubbles stop. So when the air stops coming out of the stones. So I'm going to come out and check on the stones again in about a half an hour and see how they're progressing. Until then, I guess it's just a waiting game. The rest of it is ready. I'm just waiting for these to heat up and come up to temperature and burn off the acetone so I can get them cooled down again so I can get them stabilizing. Okay, I have baked all the acetone out of these pieces and now they are cooling off under the fan here. And it's going to take a little bit longer for them to cool off. The small ones are almost cool. Medium ones are almost cool. Large ones still have a ways to come down. But I think probably within the next half hour or so, it is right now 3:37, I'll be able to start these in the Cactus Juice. So here we go. I've got this infrared thermometer, so I'm not touching them and handling them to see how cool they are to keep the oil from my fingers off them. So that's the status right now. And I'll pick up the video in about a half an hour. Okay, here I am. The Moroccan chrysocolla has cooled down, so I'm going to load that up and get that ready. And that's going in this tub. I got this at the Dollar Tree. It cost me $1.25. Prices are going up, so it would have originally cost me $1.50, except that it still had the $1.25 price tag on it. I just have to go get a glove real fast because I forgot to get that before I walked out of the house. Okay, so I'm gonna take the pieces and put them in the container and then put enough of the resin to cover the stones. They have to maintain coverage all the way throughout the depressurization process. So I'm going to put probably an additional ½ inch of resin covering the stones just to make sure that when it goes into the stones, there is enough over it to keep them covered. Okay, I've got it down to the bottom. There's about 2½ inches of clearance above the stones and the level of the resin in the container, and I'm going to peel this little warning sticker here. So you can see in without any disturbances. I've already seen some strings of bubbles coming up from the stones, so the resin is already going in. But now it says to slowly apply vacuum to keep the bubbles coming out from overflowing the container. So here we go. I'm going to start applying the vacuum. So here we go. We're starting to see some bubbles coming up. It's looking good so far. Not really seeing a huge amount of bubbles coming out, so that's a good thing. It's not like endangering overflowing or anything like that. We're already almost up to -20, so I'll probably pause it there because I'm starting to see some big bubbles come out. So I'll shut the valve, shut off the pump, and let it sit and let some bubbles come out for a while. Let's see, it's only been about 30 seconds since I started depressurizing. It says to let it soak after you release the pressure for at least twice the time that you depressurized for. So or that you vacuumed the pressure out for. Okay, now I'm going to resume taking pressure out, so I'm switching on the pump, opening the valve, okay, and it has reached its max, so I'm shutting the valve and letting it sit, and we're going to let this sit until the bubbles stop. And if we need to, I'll apply a little bit more vacuum to it as air comes out, just to make sure we've got a good, consistent vacuum and that no more air comes out. But you notice I also turn on the pump before I open the valve to the pump. That is so the vacuum does not suck the oil out of the stopped pump and into the chamber. because I've heard that can happen. So I'm doing that in that specific order, so it's got a vacuum going and it'll keep the oil in the right place instead of ruining the vacuum pump. And of course I will put in the slabs separately because they are going to be run at, they have to be flat, so I didn't want them at the bottom of this. I probably could have put them at the bottom of this without worrying about it, but you know, I'd rather do rough stone separately from the slabs, and I've got them in their own container. I'll just pour some of this resin over the top of those when I get this batch done. We've still got some big bubbles coming up, looks like. There's still some small bubbles too. I'm not going to thump it or anything because I'm afraid that if I put external pressure on the stainless steel, it might act up. You know, shock to the outside while there's a huge vacuum on the tank might cause a risk of implosion, a bigger risk. So I don't want to run that. Okay, I'm going to turn on the pump again and open the valve and see if that causes a surge of bubbles to come up. Okay. I kicked it on and it popped and it did not. Oh, there we go. It stopped, it didn't run. There we go. There we go. Yep, a little bit more bubbles coming up now. Just gonna wait until the bubbles stop coming up, because that's when you need to depressurize, is when or repressurize. Let the pressure back in is when the bubbles stop coming up. So right now it's just a waiting game, and I will fast forward through this as much as possible when I'm editing this video. Oh, and I looked up on stabilizing the Charoite. There's two reasons to stabilize Charoite. The first is because it's a fibrous mineral and because it can crack along the structure of the fibers, like I was told about by my friend. The other is it's a relatively soft mineral and is more susceptible to scratches, and stabilizing it hardens it past that, so it makes it more durable. But also people will enhance the color of it with stabilization as well, but I'm not one of those people, so I will also be telling people that my material is stabilized, but I only stabilize it to make it harder. I don't enhance the color. It's only like a 4 or 5 in hardness, so it's pretty darn soft, because quartz is like a 7. So it's like down in the calcite range. almost. Okay, still seeing some bubbles coming up, but it's slowing down. The tank is holding vacuum. I keep wanting to say pressure, even though that's the wrong term. I know you've got the reflection off the glass, and that's not really good. Let's see if I can get a better angle. There we go. That's a little bit better. Sorry, I just looked at the camera and saw that you were seeing mostly reflection off the glass. I got someone coming down the sidewalk. So far it's been on for about 12 minutes. And I'm still seeing bubbles come up. It would have been nice if it went up to 30 because this would go much faster. You know, some of these stones are rough on the bottom, so you see little streams of bubbles coming up around some edges, and then you see big bubbles popping up every once in a while from underneath the stones. It is slowing way down. Vacuum is still good on the gauge. But I think while I'm doing that, I will go do something else instead of just sitting here and watching this. So I will be back when the timer goes off, and then I'll be letting the pressure back in, removing the chrysocolla, and letting these soak for 50 minutes and putting the slabs in to stabilize. Okay, I think it's about done. So here we go. I'm letting the pressure back in. Okay, pressure is back in. Now I'm going to take the top off. Put it over there. Pick this up out. And I'm going to put the lid on this so nothing can fall off the tree into it. And that was in for a half an hour under vacuum. So that is going to stay and soak for an hour. So now the Charoite and magnesite is going in. The magnesite typically would not need to be stabilized, but it looked a little bit chalky on the edge where it had broken, so I'm just doing it just to make sure that it will hold up and hold a good polish. So now I'm opening the side with the pump, closing the other side, and I'm going to bring it up to vacuum. It's up past 15. Ah, I just saw a bubble. I'm not seeing much in bubbles. This material might already be stabilized. I'm just seeing like big bubbles coming out from underneath it. I'm seeing, okay, now I'm seeing some bubbles coming out of the magnesite. Yeah, I think the, wait a minute. No. There we go. I see bubbles coming out of it. Just not very much. Seems to be a very solid piece. And it's really weird. I see more bubbles on the bottom of the pan than I do coming up off the piece itself. Except for the magnesite. Or lemon chrysoprase. So I think the Charoite may have already been stabilized. Which is one of those things that they should have told me it was stabilized when I bought it. That's part of truth in advertising when dealing with minerals and stones. But not everybody is 100% honest when it comes to things like that. Probably what you're seeing in bubbles coming off the bottom is actually air that was introduced into the Cactus Juice resin when I was shaking it up before. That has been pulled out of solution. That's what I'm guessing, at least. So since there really isn't anything coming out of it except for the magnesite, and it's really magnesite. They call it lemon chrysoprase, but it is not a true chrysoprase. It's really a yellow-green magnesite material, not a chrysoprase. So they just call it lemon chrysoprase because it sells better. One of those other deceiving names, trademarked names that doesn't really stand up in the mineralogical world. I'm just going to leave this in until I stop seeing bubbles coming up from the magnesite, and I will probably give it about 10 minutes and check on it then. my phone battery is getting low, so I'm just gonna put my phone on charge and come back in 10 minutes and update you then. Okay, here we are. It's been 10 minutes. I don't see any bubbles coming up. So here we go. I'm going to repressurize, let the pressure back into this. Now I am heating up the plate, the warming tray to 200 degrees. Oh, wait a minute. It has to sit. It was in under pressure for 10 minutes. So I will be back out here in 20 minutes to cure the resin on these two pieces. Or to start the curing process. These just need to soak. Well, the Charoite really doesn't need to because it didn't really take in anything. But I need to cure what got on it, so, you know, it is what it is. But I'm just going to, I put parchment paper on top of here. And I'm going to heat up the plate. Put them on top of the parchment paper, and they just have to get up to 200 degrees, and then they'll be cured. And I've got parchment paper cut out and put in here for the chrysocolla. When that gets ready to go, and that is going to be in about another 50 minutes or so. So until these finish soaking, I am going to be letting my phone charge up a little bit more and getting ready for that. Okay. See you in a little bit. Okay, here I am. I am turning this up to 200 degrees. And laying the two slabs out. One of the things is this is a really water-like resin, so the stuff just drips off the slabs. I got a new pair of gloves for the next batch of stone. And this will get poured back into the jug. So now these just have to come up to 200 degrees, and then they will be done. Okay, here I am. I'm back outside. It's been an hour. These have been soaking. So I'm going to shake off the excess and get these in. I also turned up the heat a little bit because I realized that it was not quite up to 200 degrees here. But as you can see, the excess just drips off the stones. So I'm just shaking off the excess. You can see a couple little bits fell off into the bottom here. I have a funnel that was just delivered from Amazon that has a screen in it that will sort out all these little bits so they do not go into the resin bottle. But yeah, all these are just going in there. It's about 93 degrees out here right now, so that helps a little bit on getting these dry cured. Don't have to worry about fighting cold temperatures. I'm making sure they're not touching in here. We want to make sure they don't attach to one another. And trying to make it so there's as good a surface contact as I can get on the bottom. Okay, there we go. Now I'm just going to put the lid on this. And that'll help the heat contain. Gotta keep the resin off my hands because it's a skin irritant. And I'm just going to pour the other resin from this other dish into this dish. That's going to go in the scrap bin. This is going to get the lid on it, and it's going to get filtered and put back in the main bottle. I turned it up a little bit because these two pieces were not quite at 200 degrees. Let's see where they are now. They're hovering around 196. That one's done. Ooh, hot, hot, hot. Okay. It's still got a little bit of uncured resin to it. You can see it's flaking off the surface, so that tells you it was already treated. You see, because it didn't soak down into the surface. It coated, and it got gummy, and now it's just... So yeah, that was already treated. I'm actually going to put this Is there any way to pick that up? There we go. I'm going to put this up there and it'll heat up and cure the resin in there. You can see the resin is starting to cure there, so I will do this and just let a little bit of the fumes out while keeping most of the heat in. I have the burner right now at about 250 degrees, and the surface is actually at 246 or 243 in some areas. Now that's reading the paper. So that should be getting this. That's just reading the side. The side's cooler. Top. Down in is I might have to boost the temperature a little bit more, but I'll wait a little bit and see just to make sure. This resin almost has kind of a fruity smell to it. Kind of a sweet smell to it. I read up on it, and the fumes are not flammable and they're not toxic. Which is really good. There's a drop that landed on the griddle, and it is just clear, glass hard. So I think the paper is interfering with the stuff heating up, so I am just going to, because, see, this is still wet. I have it at an angle, and you can see we've got coating settling on it. So I am going to remove the paper. I'm just going to use this twist tie as something to pull it up. Do that. And put that right on there. The other side has cured, so I'll just leave that on there for a while. A little bit extra time on the heat will not damage the stone. It's not going to get any hotter than what the burner is, so it's not going to do anything other than get it just to that temperature. And these gummy pieces should be hard when it's cured, so it shouldn't be gummy at all. This is not tacky at all, so that is fully cured. Actually, that spot is a little bit tacky, so I'm just gonna put that back on anyways and let it sit on there. What the heck? A little extra heat isn't gonna hurt it. You can see it's turned a lot greener since stabilization, even though I just used clear on it. I did not put any dyes in it or anything. Now when I do go to sell these pieces that I'm cutting out of these, I will be upfront and say that this material is stabilized. These stones are probably starting to heat up. Let's see. How are they coming along? They're up to 139 on the large one, 157, 165 on that one. Small ones are up above 200 already. So there we go. This has been an all-day process, but it's worth it to get good quality material out of this stuff, and I will come back out here probably in about 30 minutes to an hour and check on these and see how they're doing and give you an update then. And probably by that time they will be done, and I will be able to turn this off and just let them cool down. So there we have it. Be back in a bit. Okay, I have taken a feel of these. They're hot to the touch, and they are not tacky at all. So I think they are done. They smell like resin, but they're going to smell like resin when they're hot. Hot resin smells like hot resin. So I'm going to turn them off. And let them cool down. They're not sticky. They're dry. And I can take them inside. And they are done. Now probably either later this week or sometime next week, I'll do a video cutting some of this material and cutting some cabs out of it. I'll pick a piece out of here to cut a cab out of. Cut some slabs and then cut a cab out of. So look forward to that. Hope you enjoyed the stabilization video. I know it was kind of a long process, but it's my first time doing this, and we'll see how it holds up with cutting. I have great expectations. Everything went smoothly, and look forward to that video probably next week on cutting some of this material. And let's see. Yes, I can pick this up. I will just pick this up and bring it into the sun so that you can see the colors on the stabilized material. They're a little bit darker. But it's still very beautiful material and should cut some very wonderful cabs. Okay, looks like I need to flip the pieces over. The undersides are still wet, so I need to rotate them. Good thing I spotted that. Okay, put them back on. Flip them over. And that's probably why I was still smelling resin. See that? They're still really wet underneath. I might just put these out on the... Ow! They are really hot. And me without any insulated gloves. Okay, crank it back up to 250. And I'll just leave it open. Okay, looks like they need some more time. Good thing I still have some more hours of sunlight here. So, not quite done yet, but still more of the same stuff. So, I'll still do the video next week. Just got more of the same to do here to get it done. So, I'll sign off because it's just going to be more of the same here. Until next time, take care, be well.